Okay, so I love Warframe. In fact, I cannot stop playing it. I've spent over 500 hours grinding it just this summer alone. And throughout my journey, I've noticed a few problems, and I've made some videos on the problems like my new player experience video. And now it's time to talk about an issue that I don't really see many people talking about. The Warframe story. I know I just made an entire community of people pick up their pitchforks and start walking in my direction, but just hear me out. The first point I'd like to make is there is a big difference between story and lore to me. An example of an amazing story is, don't worry, I won't spoil anything, but Red Dead Redemption 2. The story of Red Dead is an incredible narrative that follows the tale of a cowboy being a shitty person, but he slowly starts to realize he's not happy with the life he chose. And it's a prequel to the events that happened in Red Dead 1. Now, Red Dead 2 does have some lore to be found within the game, but the majority of it is just a full narrative story. Now, an example of a game that has incredible lore to me is the Dark Souls series. The biggest distinction being you can play through every single Souls game and not even know that there's a story and miss out on it entirely. And then you end up watching a 3-hour video essay about it on YouTube. Now, both of these modes of telling story are completely valid, and depending on who you are, one might be preferable to the other or even more rewarding to learn about. And with that being said, I think a lot of games mix these together. In fact, I think the majority of story narrative games have a lot of lore aspects within them. And for games like this, I think if you have a great main narrative story, side lore can only add to that. So we know for a fact that mixing these two things together can make something amazing. Again, for example, Red Dead Redemption 2. Okay, now that we've talked about all of that, which one of these does Warframe use? From what I understand, Warframe started as a lore type game, with most of the beginning missions having absolutely no lore, but with like a little something sprinkled in here and there if you listen closely. But something really weird happens when you start nearing the end of the star chart. The game switches directions and starts using a narrative story. Like the game just suddenly goes from using completely empty shells of nothing as quests to cinematic masterpieces. Now, one of the reasons that this is a problem is because I myself and many players who I've talked to about this end up being left confused. Warframe's story looks like this right now. 85% of the game is not a cohesive story, just tidbits of lore where the mode of communication is a talking head on the side of your screen. Not only is what they're saying not communicated well, but a lot of it will be missed unintentionally. The remaining 15% of the game is a pretty cohesive story that actually makes sense. And then as quick as it begins, it's over. And I understand that Digital Extremes plans to add more as they're doing a new huge update later this year with Warframe 1999. And this makes the problem worse for a few reasons, and I want to explain one of them. The Daviri Paradox is incredible. It's actually my second favorite quest in the entire game. It's just a complete spectacle. The visuals are amazing. Oh my god. Mwah. And I think it's so amazing that if you play it early in the game, it's really confusing and you don't know really what's going on. It's all kind of a mystery. And then you figure out later in the game what it all means. Oh my god. But now picture this. A player boots up Warframe for the first time and they decide to choose the option that lets them play the Daviri Paradox first. And they play it and they have an absolute blast and they just can't wait to see what the game has to offer them next. And then they start doing the star chart and all the quests, and it's so disappointing compared to the Daviri Paradox. And they soon figure out while playing the game they have another 80 hours to go before they reach that level of goodness of storytelling in the quests. That's crazy. That is the entire length of the Red Dead Redemption 2 story alone. So you're telling me I have to grind for the entire length of Red Dead Redemption 2 instead of just playing that game where you get the story just to get to the Warframe story? What are we doing here? Any player who is just interested in the story, any reasonable player that is, will just log off and not play it. Imagine you work a 9 to 5 and have a family and you can only play 2 hours a day and it takes 40 days of playing straight just to get to the story. In this scenario, if you are that interested in the lore, it makes way more sense to just watch a 3-hour YouTube video on it and just save your time. But luckily for people who are mostly interested in the gameplay and the story is kind of a side thing, the gameplay of Warframe definitely saves this, which is exactly where I fall under, so that's why I play it. Okay, and now we need to talk about the second dream. This is the world's greatest spectacle, the magnum opus of Warframe, or at least that's what Warframe players will tell you. I mean, honestly, Warframe players will make you believe that this is the greatest revelation, twist, plot thickening quest of all time. And after playing that quest, I was absolutely, completely left with the thought of, oh, that's pretty neat. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel like this quest has the potential to be one of the greatest-ish twists in gaming history. And honestly, at the time, it probably was for the players playing the game. And that's because at this point, they've almost spent 3 years of their lives playing this game just for this twist to happen. And it was probably just mind-breaking to them. And I'm assuming that that's why this quest has so much infamy within the Warframe community. Like, if you go to any Warframe player who has a lot of time in the game and you say, man, I'm not really enjoying the story right now, it's really dull and boring, they're instantly gonna respond to, oh my god, just wait for the second dream, oh my god, it'll change your life, it's so incredible, oh my god, I'm a different person now that I experienced it. In fact, I'm so confident that this is the case, and I know this is a very specific scenario, but if you watching this video right now are trying to get into Warframe and you have a friend with a lot of hours, go to them and tell them exactly what I said, that the star chart is very boring, the story's not very good, and then just see what they say, and then come back to this video and let me know, because that's really funny. But the point I'm trying to make about the second dream is that there is no buildup unless you count the 80 hours of absolutely nothing that you're doing as buildup. Like, there's just no hook. They just kind of throw this amazing quest at you with nothing before it, and then you're just left scratching your head and being like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like, if you've seen Attack on Titan, imagine if they did the basement episode on like season 1 episode 5, and since there's almost no character development at that point and also no world building at all, you would just be left being like, oh yeah, whoa, that's cool. And people like to say it's just because they were milking the show, but the fact that they had that much character development and world building before they showed you the twist in that episode just made it so mind-bogglingly twisty. But anyways, let me paint you another scenario. A new player logs into the game and they decide to go with the Deviri paradox, and they play through it and they think it's amazing and the story, oh my god. And then when they get to the star chart, it's just slowly building up this world piece by piece, and it's just adding a lot of things to it, and the narrative is like very interesting. They are completely captivated by this world because of their outside lives being so bad. And then they get to the second dream quest, and then everything they knew about that world got flipped on its head, and they're just confused and they can't wait to see what's next. This is how they should do the story if they want to go with a narrative story type. And don't get me wrong, I understand why the game is like this now. It's because for the first few years it feels like the developers didn't really know what direction they wanted to go with in the game, and they finally figured it out, and it was amazing. But I think it's an incredible misplay that it's been 9 years since the second dream released and they still haven't fixed the first part of the star chart. I think that this would help a lot of new players get more into the game and actually keep playing the game, especially if they're interested in the story. And another less important issue I have with this story is the way a lot of the times they deliver the information to you. Some of the most important dialogue in the entire game is delivered by a talking head on the side of your screen while you're mid-combat and can barely pay attention. I have no problem with a game trying to cut down on as many cutscenes as possible because it just breaks the flow of gameplay, but I do have a problem with missing some of the most important information because it was delivered while I was trying to shoot some guy in the head. But again, this is not the main issue, and I feel like it is important, but it's not that important in the grand scheme of things. But maybe I think they should make the timing a little better. Now, to get back to my main point, a fellow small YouTuber was reacting to my video live on stream. Shout out Bradley. And he made a really good point. He said if he paid money for the game, he would probably try to refund it on Steam before the 2-hour time limit was up due to how dull the star chart is. And then he asked his chat if they would do the same, and almost every single person in his chat agreed with him. So I feel like this is a sentiment a lot of Warframe players share, and I think it's something Digital Extreme should definitely try to fix. I think the Warframe lore is great, and it's a great foundation for what it could be one day. But since they decided to change to a kind of story-driven narrative game, I feel like the actual storytelling element of the game is not that strong right now. And I know a lot of people are gonna be upset with me making this grand claim, but it's true. And instead of just being okay with it, I think since Digital Extremes is so perceptive of what's going on in the community, people should make a little bit of a bigger deal about it so that way they listen and they actually fix it. This would not only keep new players engaged with the story, but it would create a narrative that could be easily followed by the quest and would make the quests themselves hit so much harder than they already do. But anyways, if you've made it this far in the video, please remember to give me a like and a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. We are slowly approaching the 2,000 subscriber mark, and that is amazing. And also remember to go follow my Twitch. I'm live 3 to 4 times a week from 3 to 7 p.m. EST. And lastly, remember to join my Discord. We have a not so wholesome community in there. We host a lot of events, we play games together, it's a whole lot of fun. Yeah, that's about it. See ya.